Hi there everyone, welcome back to Press for Truth TV. Today is Tuesday, August 28th, 2012. Thanks for joining us once again. And today I wanted to point out the fact that the Canadian military has been very busy lately getting things done behind the scenes. Now many of us here have known for quite some time that the Canadian Armed Forces will often follow suit of our big brother to the south, America. And we have covered extensively in the past this beyond the border security perimeter deal between Canada and the US at our Canadian-US border, which has been blurring the lines between the two authorities, where we've been seeing pilot projects in the waterways and also an eventual land-based pilot project to have American authorities on Canadian soil and vice versa, Canadian police on American soil. And now this all plays into the bigger agenda of this North American Union concept, the idea of the lines being blurred so much that Canada and the US will eventually join into this North American Union, and that in a nutshell is what this is all about. So now, today, we are learning that the Canadian military, as we said, following the suit of our big brothers to the south, Americans, is just announced that they intend to spend upwards of $1 billion on unmanned armed aerial drones to patrol our skies. Here is a recent article out from the Ottawa Citizen. Canadian military intends to spend $1 billion on armed drones. Senior Canadian defense leaders pitched the idea of spending up to $600 million for armed drones to take part in the Libyan war shortly before the conflict ended, according to documents obtained by the Citizen. And while the death of Libyan leader Colonel Muammar Gaddafi effectively ended the war and scuttled the Defense Department's plans, the military has now relaunched its program to purchase unmanned aerial vehicles that can be outfitted with missiles and other bombs. According to the DND documents, the military intends to spend around $1 billion on the project. And that's another thing that we can't forget, that these military machines, these drones, were originally designed and deployed, and their whole purpose was to drop bombs on places like Pakistan and Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya. And so these military machines are now being purchased for domestic operations to spy on Canadian citizens. Article goes on here to say the Conservative government approved last month the issuing of a request to aerospace firms to provide details about the types of drones now available. In its request to the industry, the government pointed out the need for the unmanned aircraft to operate in the Arctic. The aircraft should also be able to carry precision-guided munitions, the government said. This capability will allow the Canadian Forces to fill critical deficiencies. The Canadian Forces has used unarmed UAVs at various stages during the Afghan war, but it has been trying to purchase a new fleet of armed drones for years. In 2007, the Citizen reported the Defense Department had asked the Conservative government for approval to buy the American-built Predator drones for the Afghanistan mission. That request was denied because of concerns for cabinet and federal bureaucracy that the deal would be non-competitive. The government eventually approved the lease of Israeli-built UAVs from McDonald Detweiler and Associates in Richmond, BC. Those unarmed Heron aircraft operated out of Kandahar airfield. DND stated its project to purchase armed UAVs in 2008, but that stalled because funding had to be diverted to other equipment programs. Documents obtained by the Citizen show that military leaders saw the Libyan war as a possible way to move its stalled UAV program forward. According to a briefing presented August 16th, 2011 to Defense Minister Peter MacKay, they pointed out that the purchase of such aircraft for the Libyan conflict could kickstart their larger project to buy UAVs for both domestic and international missions. So again, just to reiterate the point that it is originally meant for military applications to fight an enemy, and now it is being used on citizens for monitoring and surveillance. And that has actually just been exposed to be exactly the case. Here's a recent article out from Steve Watson. It says the government documents prove domestic drones are for spying on Americans. A data dump of government documents secured via the Freedom of Information Act shows that the role of domestic unarmed drones will, for the most part, be focused solely on the mass surveillance of the American people. The documents from the Federal Aviation Administration were recently made public by the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Among the documents are never-before-released special airworthiness certificates detailing which private companies have been granted permission to operate drones in U.S. skies. And the article goes on to say, the unmanned aerial vehicle industry has attempted to lobby the government using all kinds of platforms, suggesting that the drones can be used for monitoring environmental changes or the effects of natural disasters. However, the FAA documents conclusively show, if there was any doubt before, that monitoring the activity of everyday Americans is the #1 priority. And so that is what it all boils down to in a nutshell, is the government is now spending all this time and effort into monitoring what its own people are doing. And, you know, it begs the question, why are they spending so much money, so much time invested in monitoring the activities of what we are all doing? Well, I think over the last 10 years, there has been a massive awakening taking place. More and more Canadians, Americans, people all over the world are waking up to the fact that their governments are not necessarily looking out for the best interest of its people. And so the government knows this as well, so it would almost appear that we're potentially reaching this critical tipping point. And we got to remember, this whole system, this pyramidal structure, is kind of like a house of cards, where it's a very fascinating and intricate design. However, at the same time, it's very fragile, and it could all come crashing down at any given moment. So I think that's why we're seeing such an increase in the government's wanting to monitor, surveil, and patrol the skies to keep tracks on everyone and to keep an eye on what everyone is doing. So it's just something I wanted to bring to your attention today. As I said, the Canadian military has been doing this somewhat under the radar. I'll put a couple links to these articles in the description if you want to check them out for yourself. And anyways, guys, that is all for today. I want to thank you all for tuning in once again, and I'll see everyone right back here tomorrow. Take care.